Okay, hi everyone. My name is Mo Wise, and I'm a wetland scientist at Irvine Ranch Water District, and we also call it IRWD. This is our first Lunch and Learn session hosted by the Women in Wetlands section of SWS. Thank you for being here. We're hoping you're able to grab some lunch and just learn a little bit about wetland work from some folks with different backgrounds and professions. I'm here with my colleague, Dulce Cortez, and we wanted to discuss our work at IRWD. And if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat section.
Q&A,
sorry, and we will answer at the end.
Just a quick background on me. My name is Dulce Cortez, and I'm a wetland specialist with the Natural Treatment Systems Department, or NTS. I was born and raised in Orange County. My journey in wetland science started at Cal State Fullerton, where I majored in earth science. I chose the BA route because I love the interdisciplinary pathway I could curate with my courses. And I took on an undergraduate research thesis because there was a great opportunity to learn more about estuaries and their future in the face of climate change. After my work in the Newport Bay estuary, my advisor encouraged me to pursue graduate school to continue interdisciplinary work in wetlands. I attended the San Francisco State University Estuary and Ocean Science Center in Marin, and I'm currently finishing up writing my graduate thesis. I worked with the National Estuarine Research Reserve during my time at SFSU and conducted really great monitoring work with them. And after graduate school, I knew I wanted to pursue a career in marine, coastal, and/or watershed resources and in the decisions affecting those resources in California. So in 2019, I applied for and received the 2020 California State Sea Grant Fellowship. I was placed with the Port of San Diego, where I worked with the environmental conservation team. Unfortunately, the fellowship was entirely remote, but I was still able to learn so much about planning, implementation, and management of coastal resource policies and programs in San Diego. I collaborated with other state and local government agencies, with construction companies, consultants, internal departments, working on port tideland projects. And throughout the fellowship term, I helped provide scientific and research support to the team. These experiences really solidified my interest in continuing to pursue a career in my local government, where my scientific background could be useful and resourceful.
And my name is Mo. I am the wetland scientist here at IRWD, and I have kind of a similar background to Dulce in that I was also born and raised here in Southern California. I decided to go to UC Santa Barbara for my undergraduate degree, and I studied aquatic biology. And I really got my hands both in the marine science field and freshwater field at UCSB, which really kind of initiated my love for watershed science. From Santa Barbara, I took 3 years off to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, if I wanted to go back to school. And the answer was absolutely yes. So I moved up north to the Monterey Bay, where I attended Moss Landing Marine Laboratories, where I studied chemical oceanography. And my thesis research focused on the nearshore environment, looking at agriculture and how agricultural inputs impact the nearshore environment, especially in the Elkhorn Slough, which is a giant National Estuary Research Reserve. So from there, I defended my thesis in 2017, and I was hired here at the Water District as their wetland scientist. Recently, I've become more involved with the Women in Wetlands as their chair-elect, so I'm very excited to get more involved with folks and collaborate. Okay, so at IRWD, we operate a system of constructed treatment wetlands like the one pictured here, and we're in coastal Orange County, California, so right inshore from the ocean. And these are designed to treat dry weather urban runoff flows. So imagine you are washing your car in the driveway, maybe hosing down your dog after the beach, or even just overwatering your lawn a little bit, even though you shouldn't be. That reaches the storm drains via the gutter And these are the flows that we treat in our wetlands. So flows from local storm drains are diverted into these wetlands where the water is slowed down and treated via totally natural processes. And this is before being returned to the storm drain system. So we have 44 of these treatment wetlands connected by the storm drain system located within the San Diego Creek watershed. And this drains to the upper Newport Bay estuary and ultimately to the Pacific Ocean. And these wetlands help in a watershed-wide effort to help our partner cities meet their regulatory water quality requirements. And they're important in protecting and improving the water quality of our coastal region. The bay and the creek are both 303D listed impaired water bodies for metals, nutrients, sediments, and pesticides, while the creek is also listed for selenium and the bay for fecal coliform. And our wetlands help remove these pollutants higher up in the watershed before they can even impact the ocean. So the natural processes through which pollutants are removed are illustrated in this figure. So we have incoming water that is just chock full of nutrients and kind of toxins for the environment. So nitrogen and phosphorus are removed via denitrification, plant uptake, and sorption, whereas harmful bacteria is removed via UV exposure as well as native bacteria. And heavy metals tend to settle out in our sediments. And so you're getting clean water coming out of the outflow of our wetlands, which is a lot cleaner than what we are receiving into our wetlands. So all of these are constructed wetlands. So they vary in size and form, but they all have the same general design scheme. So on the left-hand side here, you can see the inflow. So that is where the storm drain is discharging into our sediment basin. So our sediment basin allows for heavy particles to really settle out. And then the water is channelized into a shallow water channel that has a lot of emergent and submerged vegetation. From the channel, the water is discharged into a more ponded open water area where the water can kind of spread out and that UV light can really penetrate the water column to kill that harmful bacteria. From the ponded area, it's rechannelized to come into contact with more vegetation for nutrient removal before it's being discharged at the outlet structure, which then ties back into the storm drain system downstream. Now, there's variations to design. Each wetland drains different areas of the urban environment. So there could be multiple inflows, there could be multiple numbers of ponded areas, and the residency time within each wetland will change by wetlands. But the main takeaway is all of our wetlands are working via natural processes, and there's no pumps, and it's all gravity fed.
So as Mo just explained, our sites meet their primary purpose pretty well, but they also serve secondary purposes of particular importance to our local community. Our NTS sites, as well as our biggest NTS site, the San Joaquin Marsh, serve as wildlife sanctuaries. The San Joaquin Marsh is a birding hotspot and a wetland of distinction for SWS. Using iNaturalist, eBird, Sea and Sage Audubon data, the internal data collection, we have counted 561 species in our wildlife inventory. The NTS sites are great examples of green infrastructure in urban areas. They not only improve stormwater treatment, they help with permeability and provide us with cleaner air. They also provide recreational areas in dense urban areas. Our San Joaquin Marsh has 12.1 miles of flat trails and is located among the heart of Irvine. And they also add to natural aesthetics. The San Joaquin Marsh hosts a variety of summer camps for kids, and we often lead educational and public tours. And our sites do way more than just clean up water. They improve water quality. I want to share a little bit of what my day-to-day can look like as a wetland specialist at IRWD. And my day can vary depending on the month or week throughout the year. We perform biweekly site checks at 35 of our NTS sites and monthly site checks at 6 of them. When I go out and visit a site, I perform water quality monitoring at the inlet and outlet. This includes looking at various water quality parameters using this YSI XO1 instrument. I pay attention to what the water can physically look like. Fog for fats, oils, grease can be an issue, especially in urban areas. So if that's the case, I make sure I let the appropriate people know if it's an issue and collect water samples as needed. We work closely with a landscape company. They're contracted to maintain our vegetation at our sites, and they visit these sites monthly. So sometimes they're visiting 2 or 3 a day. We help them take notes of dead trees, excessive trash, maybe after a rain event. Trash is a huge issue for us because these wetlands are surrounded by big communities. And heavy sediment in our sediment ponds can be an issue after a rain event. And sediment can also clog our storm drain, so we have to clean out our manholes. We have water samplers on site, so we make sure that the electricity is running and that they are on and functioning. Checking hardscape is also super important. Often we have graffiti on our structure walls. And this hardscape can also include broken gates and fallen trees on maintenance roads. All these observations and data are input into an application, an app. This app collects all of the information and sends it to our district database. 2 of our sites require weekly BACT sampling. This sampling checks for E. coli, total coliform, and Enterococcus. All this work needs to be completed by between 11 and 11:30 in the morning every single day. And each site takes me about 30 to 35 minutes to complete. So I'm usually checking on 3 to 4 sites, depending on the distance between them. We have a handful of deployed YSI XO 2 and 3s at some of our sites that are continuously collecting data. And these instruments need to be cleaned and calibrated bi-monthly by myself and the rest of the team. So some weeks can be really hectic depending on the work we are conducting in addition to our daily duties. I wanted to show you just an example of one of the water quality parameters we collect weekly and how we use it. So this graph is the average dissolved oxygen at the sites compiled for 1 fiscal year. The brown bars represent the inlet and the blue bars represent the outlet. There are so many factors that can create the DO, dissolved oxygen, to fluctuate. Algae, sedimentation, flow can affect our DO readings the most. Measuring dissolved oxygen helps us better understand how to manage these wetlands. As wetland managers, we can increase or decrease flow by adding or removing weir boards from the outlet structure. As Mo mentioned, these are fed via gravity, so there are no pumps. For example, if we have an oil spill, we can add weir boards in order to contain the contaminated water so we can perform cleanup operations to help protect downstream reaches of the watershed. Dense algae during the summer can create an anoxic water condition, so we sometimes remove weir boards to allow faster rate of flow, which can improve our water quality. Our physical water quality data is collected weekly for our sites, and from this data, we are able to react to changing environmental conditions. So on top of our daily, weekly, and monthly water quality monitoring efforts, we also monitor the wildlife scene at our sites. Our wetlands are dispersed among housing developments and serve as wildlife corridors in a heavily urbanized environment. A handful of our sites contain bird boxes, which we maintenance throughout the year and monitor during nesting season. Our San Joaquin Marsh has trail cameras, which we QA/QC video footage for in order to see wildlife traffic and diversity in our largest wetland. Restoration is a very big project for us in our department. These sites are built in such an urban environment. There are so many invasives that come from the as-built soil used to build and construct the site, and the invasives are a constant battle. One method of restoration is to plant native container stock to help vegetate the basins. In 2019, we developed an integrated pest management plan, which restructured the way we approached non-native species and our sites. We work closely with our landscape contractors, especially when it comes to mowing and weeding, safe herbicide spraying, and we rely on them to maintain our irrigation, which is usually only used during and immediately after restoration efforts. Restoration adds more native habitat, it pushes our removal efficiencies even further, and creates open spaces for the public to enjoy.
Okay, so how well do our sites perform? This table summarizes the average removal efficiencies of various pollutants along with the amount of pounds removed of each pollutant. And the pounds is something I didn't use much in academia, but as a public utility member, we use that a lot. Keep in mind that these are averages. So some sites do have higher averages than this, including several sites in which the water infiltrates completely into the groundwater before it reaches the outlet, essentially providing 100% pollutant removal. The most impressive of these removals is the approximately 80% nitrate removal and the 65% total nitrogen removal, resulting in about 72,000 pounds of total nitrogen removed from the watershed per year. Also of note are the total phosphorus removals with a 36% removal efficiency and a total of 1,800 pounds removed, and of particular importance in our watershed, a removal of 44% selenium or 160 pounds. So in our watershed, it's a little unique. This isn't an issue universally, but selenium is a major constituent of concern. The soil in our area is called Monterey Formation, and it naturally has elevated selenium that seeps into our groundwater. In some regions of our watershed, this groundwater springs to the surface and is incorporated into the storm drain system, eventually discharging into the upper Newport Bay. And with elevated selenium in this groundwater, we've seen harmful effects in fish and bird reproduction, as you can see in this wild fish photo here. In order to protect wetland and marine habitat in our watershed, we partnered with OC Sanitation District and have some of our surface water flows in the Peters Canyon wash area diverted to be treated as wastewater due to the extremely high selenium. So the Peters Canyon pipeline project, you can see in the far left-hand side, really isn't our typical wetland in that there's literally no vegetation or really any wetland habitat, but we manage it as it is helping us meet our water quality goals. This is an example of civil engineering used directly to improve the environment in our urban area. In last year alone, the Peters Canyon pipeline project was able to remove 11.5 pounds of selenium. That sounds kind of small, but remember, selenium is a trace element, and that was for our whole watershed. The largest removal of selenium was in our largest wetland, the San Joaquin Marsh, but Peters Canyon was well above most of our other wetland sites. So each year as the wetland scientist, I'm tasked with compiling, analyzing, and writing an annual report that summarizes the water quality at each of our 44 sites for the fiscal year. This table represents some of our sites and the removal efficiencies for constituents of concern. The highlighted cells show a net increase from inlet to outlet, and this can be in part due to biological activity within the wetlands themselves. Overall, we see reduction in TMDL constituents due to our network of urban treatment wetlands. And this helps our water district with compliance efforts for our region, and especially during times when we have to discharge extra water at the water plant that we work at during big storm surges. So as a public utility, we get to partner with agencies in our area, and we help them by providing them with water quality data, access to natural resources in the area, and volunteer opportunities for the public, which has become increasingly popular. In turn, partnering with organizations and agencies helps us build a network of people interested in protecting and cleaning our waterways. We also gain partnership for large capital projects in the area with support from multiple entities. And mostly it's just been really rewarding to partner with groups such as the OC Coastkeeper and the Newport Bay Conservancy, and just to see how we can work together from a freshwater and a marine environment to really help our local environment.
Mo and I wanted to kind of summarize what it means for us to be in academia and in now the public agency realm. And using our experience in both academia as science researchers and scientists in public utility, we're really able to tease apart what it means to be part of the group of scientists in the industry. As student researchers, we learned theorems that guided ecology. We continued on to graduate school to chase our passion for research. Our MS research was single field focused. Our academic pathways provided a basis to develop transferable skills, and oftentimes we had irregular funding. At IRWD, we were able to use our unique scientific background to brainstorm ways we can meet regulatory needs in creative ways. We are part of an interdisciplinary team working on multiple projects at a time, and we have the opportunity to create new projects using renewable and long-term funding. We wanted to conclude this by just showing you a collage of photos that our scientists do here at the Irvine Ranch Water District, and we want to advocate for the great opportunities wetland scientists and all kind of environmental scientists have in the public utility realm. Moving into a new climate era, local governments are faced with the need for environmental solutions. Orange County is rapidly growing, creating a need for more housing and better solutions to treat the increase of urban runoff and other environmental concerns. Wetland scientists who typically find themselves in more academic, research-based roles offer interdisciplinary solutions for many of these environmental issues. And with our scientific background, we are able to provide insightful management solutions to IRWD's constructed wetlands, and we are part of a unique niche of science and public utility.
So with that, we just wanted to thank you all so much for joining. We will be answering questions in our Q&A section, but we also wanted to reach out and just say, please email us with any questions you have. Also, if you'd like to be a participant or a speaker for another Lunch and Learn session, we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday season. Okay, so starting with the question from Laureen Lynn, will you at some point need to harvest vegetation from the created wetlands to reduce the heavy metal accumulation? So we do harvest vegetation and dispose of the vegetation, mostly from a flow standpoint, with having the heavy metal accumulation as a secondary source. But we do have to harvest the vegetation so that we don't impinge the flow within our channelized systems. So we do that probably once a year for our larger sites. Some of our sites need it less often, but we do that.
Great questions. How do you address excess sediment loads? So most of our sites have an inlet and outlet sediment pond, and our landscapers are responsible with scooping the excess amount of sediment loads. Sometimes during storms, we do have a big pulse of sediment, and we do need to get outside contractors to vector out the sediment. But with constant cleaning from our landscapers, we shouldn't have to vector out as much as we need to. And how do we deal with fog? So we do have an in-house lab that we collect water samples for. We will notify city or county depending on where the fog is. And then we can go out there ourselves and clean it, usually depending on where the NTS site is located. It is up to the city and county to decide where it, or figure out where it came from. But we do go out there ourselves and clean it for, the habitat for the birds and the environment.
And the treatment style is we use oil booms that we can deploy at the inlet and the outlet. We can try and circle the oil spill. We also have oil mats that we can put out there to absorb the oil. But like Dulce said, it's kind of a collaborative effort depending on how large the oil spill is. And if it is small enough, we can just use our own materials to clean it up. From Rachel Schultz, what aspect of your education do you think has been particularly helpful in your job? So I feel like the most transferable skills for me has been field work. I think that taking classes that have a lab portion or a field portion has been really interesting. I'm a very, I learn by doing. And so being able to take things and theorems that we learn in the classroom, but then apply them to the real world or out in nature, that has been my biggest, way to learn for me, especially since we do about 50-50 desk work and field work. So I think that was for me.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way a little bit with what Mo said, but during my graduate coursework, we were required to do an internship with a state or local agency. And that kind of focused my attention more to how science in the real world, other than like our little research bubble in school, works. And that really allowed me to step out of my comfort zone and say, okay, this is how sediment works in the estuaries and what it means to the community and people. So I think taking on an internship or something that puts you in kind of the real world after grad school is super important. And I've used those skills here at IRWD.
So a question from Jessica Monson, what do you do with harvested vegetation? We work with landscape contractors all the time, and we have a contractor who mulches for us. We have some mitigation areas where there are ancient Indian burial grounds, and we're unable to plant anything or like use the grounds because they're very sacred. So we actually have been cleared to mulch the area, which helps keep the dust down as well, since we are in a very urban environment. So we will mulch our vegetation. Can you speak to funding for all this work from taxes and public funding? So we are publicly funded. A lot of our personal funding for our jobs comes from people who are overwatering. So if they are ratepayers who pay at an extremely high rate, that comes into our pockets. And we're totally publicly funded through ratepayers.
Yeah. So we are a special district. So we're not part of the city and we're not part of the county.
Exactly. I think we have a couple more in the chat. Oh. Is there any invertebrate monitoring occurring? Yes. So every year we do invertebrate monitoring. We had to press the pause button with COVID and our inability to work so closely together. Now we can. So this next year we plan on doing that invertebrate monitoring. So we do aquatic invertebrate sweeping throughout the bulrush. We do some horizontal traps within the water column, and we are just identifying and counting them as kind of an indication for water quality. So we do that. Yes.
We didn't mention a lot of projects that we do here as wetland scientists and specialists here at IRWD, but we have created floating wetlands is another project that we love to do, and we create them and launch them out at some of our ponds. So that's something we're going to continue to develop in the future.
Yeah, with the floating wetlands, we went to an SWS conference in Baltimore, and the Baltimore Harbor has a bunch of those, which were so neat. Highly recommend checking them out if you're ever there. And some of our ponds are not as vegetated as we'd like them to be because they're so enclosed in such an urban area. There's not a lot of really space to vegetate or really like habitat in our areas. They can be kind of hardened areas. So we can put these floating wetlands in there to increase nutrient uptake and to just add something like really beautiful to look at for people who are walking around in that area as well. Okay, so we have some more questions. We're looking at someone who wants to convert a site to an oak woodland. What advice do you have, if any, that a preliminary water quality testing on site for either the seasonal precipitation or soil can provide to determine what type of site prep is needed to convert this site over the years? I would look at soil nitrogen concentration. I would look at soil moisture, and I would look at the soil organic carbon content. Those are like the three things that I would immediately go to. Feel free to email me if you have more questions about that, and we can kind of brainstorm together. I would love that.
Yeah, I think we've learned with restoration how important soil is. So really starting to look at soil nutrient levels in your area could be the first step into having healthy soil for your vegetation moving forward.
Are you aware of any similar programs elsewhere in the country, such as the Midwest? If so, thoughts on similarities or differences in the programs? I did work with a consultant that we were talking with about certain projects. There are a lot of wetlands being created at effluents of refineries. That would be more of a private company. I do know of like certain restoration companies that could be their specialty. There's nothing that I really know of that has such a network of wetlands as we do. Like 44 wetlands in one watershed is a very high density of treatment wetlands, but there are certain water districts. I would look at your local resource conservation district, water districts, sanitation districts, and those would be more of like the larger companies that might be having treatment wetlands. And I can also ask my boss if he knows of anyone else. So feel free to email me as well, because I would love to point you in the right direction. I'm not familiar with the Midwest, but I can get familiar.
Yeah.
So if community members start making good water use decisions, your funding might be compromised.
Yeah.
It could.
We live in a very, we are located in the Irvine Company District, which is a very luxurious, would you say, affluent community. And we don't think they'll stop watering anytime soon. People love their green lawns. And yeah, it could be compromised, but we are a small department. So
there's only 5 of us.
There's only 5 of us, yeah.
In our whole department. And we also I think that the community appreciates their wetlands, and we don't want them to be full. That's for dang sure. We definitely would rather our wetlands be nice and low, because we know that means we're not wasting any of our water, but we don't really see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. Do you conduct any planktonic sampling in addition to nutrient sampling? That's along with our macroinvertebrate sampling that we do. So yes, we do every year. We do outsource our samples to get them identified in a lab. We just don't have the manpower here to do that, but we do that. How does the selenium removal work? So selenium,
well, a lot of it gets diverted to the OC sand district. sanitation district, which is then treated as wastewater. So we don't know how it's removed as to when it enters that pipeline, which we talked about, the Peters Canyon pipeline, because that gets diverted to our wetland, to a wastewater facility.
And then within the wetlands, our removal of selenium is not necessarily removing selenium completely, but actually changing the oxidation state of selenium from selenate to selenite. And by doing that, by changing the oxygen on the selenium itself, you're able to create a form of selenium that's not bioavailable. So you're really just transforming the selenium into a form that will not accumulate within biological creatures to really have the harmful effects of the reproduction. So some of it can be volatilized, and some of it can be transformed by oxidation states that occurs naturally within wetlands.
I think we did have a chlorophyll sensor at some of our sites at our main NTS site, the San Joaquin Marsh, but I don't think we had a lot of issues with it. Is that correct?
The calibrating of the sensor was so wacky to be done in the field on such a high level that we needed so many sensors calibrated that it became not very feasible for us. We do chlorophyll sampling on our monthly samples. So we do get an idea of chlorophyll ebb and flow throughout the year. It's just not on the handheld sampler that we use out in the field every day. And that was just for user ease because it was becoming quite a thing to do titrations and the whole calibration down in the lab. What do you like about working in the public sector? And did you ever consider working in the private sector instead?
I always knew I wanted to work in the public sector because I wanted to be part of something that could help my community and still do science. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. And I really enjoy the work that we're doing. I mean, we have 44 man-made wetlands. I think it's super cool. And I do enjoy one perk of the job is we work 4/10s. So we're in at 6 o'clock and out by 4:30. But that really allows us a really good chunk of the morning to be out in the field and walking through our sites. I always knew I wanted to do field work and office work. So this is kind of the best of both worlds for me.
And for me, I have done consulting work in the past. I worked my entire time when I was in grad school. I did some consulting through the Central Coast Wetlands Group, where I was a field ecologist for them. And I also was a contracted biologist through the Moss Landing Power Plant. And so I feel like I dipped my toes in quite a couple different jobs. Before I even went to grad school, I worked on an oil rig in Santa Barbara as an environmental compliance monitor. And that was a whole nother world. I really dig my job right now. It helps when you have great coworkers and just kind of knowing that you're immediately impacting your local community feels good at the end of a long day. At least you know you're kind of helping the world out. And for me personally, that's all I wanted to do when I got into the environmental field. So it's been a nice, steady job for me coming out of academia with a more volatile funding climate in academia. I was craving a little bit more stability, and I definitely got that here.
Yeah, I think we have a really unique position in our jobs. We work at a wastewater treatment facility, so to be, kind of biologists or environmental scientists at a wastewater facility, it is kind of pretty cool because not only are we treating for recycle water, district has this other environmental component to it, which is really neat.
That looks like the end of questions. We'll hang on here for a little while. If anyone wants to ask any more questions, feel free.
And feel free to find us on LinkedIn. And email us. Our emails are up on the screen if you have any other questions, or maybe you're from Orange County or in SoCal and want to volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers and interns in the future to help us with the great work that we have here at Irvine Ranch Water District. I think so. Oh, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Also, if anyone would like to be a speaker at another Lunch and Learn, please email me. I would love to coordinate some more talks come the new year.
Yeah, another question. Oh, just. Oh. I think we're good. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Happy holidays.